Welcome to the Church of Rock Show, Episode 10, Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Hello everybody, welcome to the Church of Rock Show, a music history show by a fan for fans. I am your host, Dan Bukowski. Every week I will dive deep into some of the most important, influential, and sometimes simply put, the albums that I have found to be enjoyable, interesting, and that have had a profound effect on my life. I will talk history, dissect lyrics, and the most enjoyable part, I will get into my personal journey with the album. Before we get into this week's episode, please consider visiting the show website at www.churchofrockshow.com. From there, go to the podcast section where each show will have its own page. I will be including some extras I find for each episode, such as rare videos and cool photos from the era for the album being discussed. For you, you can interact with others on the show's Facebook page at Church of Rock Show, where each episode will have a dedicated post where we can discuss the album and share our personal stories about the music. Also, I will be posting cool and interesting YouTube gems I come across spanning music's vast history. If you find something interesting, please share it with me, and I may use it for a future post. The Instagram page is at Church of Rock Show. Here I'll be sharing what I'm currently listening to and posting more cool photos from music's vast history. The show can also be followed on Twitter at Church of Rock 75. You can support the show by telling the music fan in your life about the show. Word of mouth goes a long way and would be greatly appreciated. If you like what you hear, consider leaving a 5-star review for the show on Apple Podcasts. We want to get this content out to as many people as possible, and those reviews go a long way with getting the show to the top of the directories. Also hit the subscribe button to wherever you listen to your podcast to be sure you never miss an episode. Hello everybody. Now on to the show. Welcome to the 10th episode of the Church of Rock Show. This is a milestone, and I want to thank you for all of you who have taken the time to download and listen to this show. The response has been amazing, and I'm truly humbled by all the kind words and support I have received these past few months. This has not gone unnoticed. I decided to try something different and something special for this 10th episode, and that is to take a deep dive into the double album. There are so many great double albums that have been created over the years, and I feel like I need to make a commitment to take a dive into these works. I know they are a lot of work, but I feel like I need to set a standard and a time to take these on. They are going to be a lot of work, but these albums cannot be ignored. The first double album to be discussed on the show is Elton John's 1973 release, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is Elton John's 7th studio album, which was recorded May 1973 at the studio Chateau in France. The album was originally intended to be recorded in Jamaica, but there were some issues going on which forced Elton to move the recording operation to France. Let's jump into the Jamaica portion of the story. Here is something I lift from the wiki. Under the working titles Vodka and Tonics and Silent Movies, Talking Pictures, Bernie Taupin wrote the lyrics in 2.5 weeks, with John composing most of the music in 3 days while staying at the Pink Flamingo Hotel in Kingston, Jamaica. He wanted to go to Jamaica, he has said, in part because the Rolling Stones had just recorded Goat's Head Soup there. Production on the album was started in Jamaica in January of 1973. Though after difficulties with the sound system and the studio piano, coupled with the disturbance due to the Joe Frazier and George Foreman boxing match taking place in Kingston, and violent political tension due to the poor economic situation, the band decided to move before any productive work was done. Elton John and Bernie Taupin both spoke to Rolling Stone about the Jamaica experience. Elton John. We went to Jamaica to write and record at Dynamic Studios in Kingston. That's where the Rolling Stones had done Goat's Head Soup and Cat Stevens had done Foreigner. And we thought we'd have a change of climate from the Chateau where we had done the last couple of albums. Bernie Taupin. My memories of this are slightly fragmented. Obviously, we had grand intentions that came crashing to the ground once we got there and saw the studio, which was, to put it bluntly, abysmal. Here's Elton. I don't know what happened. Both the albums I mentioned are really good. The studio workers were on strike, so we had to cross the picket line to get into the studio. That wasn't very pleasant. Then some of the equipment broke down. They kept saying they'd fix it tomorrow, but in the Caribbean, tomorrow can mean 3 days. Bernie Taupin. The climate was hospitable, but the natives weren't. To use the terminology of the time, there was not a good vibe. I remember a lot of barbed wire around the studio and armed guards. We spent a lot of time congregating around the pool area of the hotel, feeling there was safety in numbers. The Stones did manage to record there, but in retrospect, I think they had a mobile unit with them. The only thing I remember trying to record was Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting. It was an aborted attempted, just atrocious. Elton John. We just didn't have the time to wait around down there. So we thought, we're running out of money. We've got to cut our losses. And Bernie Taupin would say, it really was an escape, more or less. Elton John. I have no memory of ever feeling like we were in danger down there. I found a centipede in my bed one night, but that's about as frightened as I got. There was no fear factor. It was just purely monetary and budgetary. There were no hard feelings about Jamaica whatsoever. Bernie Taupin would say, I remember everybody sort of jumping into whatever vehicles they can get into. It was a bit of sort of like a Cuban Revolution trying to make it to the airport. I imagine it was like the scene from The Godfather Part 2 where everybody is just racing for the airport. It was our mini version of that. Guitarist Davy Johnstone on the time in Jamaica from the Classic Albums documentary. The first sign that we got the first time we got that something might be a bit wrong was when the guy ran in the studio. We heard him say, Carlton, get the microphone. We went, oh fuck, get the microphone? We used 20 mics on the drums even in those days. I was like, oh, we're in deep shit. Drummer Nigel Olsson. There was no gear in the studio, Olsson confirmed. Gus was looking around. Well, we need some 414s and 57s. Don't worry, man. They'll come tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never came. Here we have a situation where the setting is not a one-size-fits-all proposition, where we have the Rolling Stones recording and producing the very successful Goat's Head Soup album, and Elton John can't even get this project off the ground in the same exact place. The environment was one thing, where Elton John has all these external events going on in the area, which causes a disruption to the work. Another thing that we see is the difference of the comfort level, and the overall sound of the studios varies between artists such as the Rolling Stones, who were able to thrive in Jamaica, where Elton John just couldn't get locked in and get the sound on par with his preference. Once Elton John and Bernie Taupin and the band made their way to France, to the familiar surroundings of the chateau, things went a lot smoother. In a familiar place where they made magic before. Again, from Rolling Stone, Elton John, we got there. We really had to make up for lost time. I think that probably accelerated the writing process and the recording process even more. Bernie Taupin would chime in and say, there was definitely the comfort of returning to a place that you really were familiar with. So we basically set up camp, and everything really went pretty swimmingly. Elton John. During a typical day, the band would come down, there'd be instruments around the breakfast table, Bernie would be writing on a typewriter. I'd be sitting at the electric piano, and as the band came down for breakfast, I would write the song. They would pick up their instruments and play it. Bernie Taupin. There was a piano in the corner of the dining room, and there was a long communal table where all the guys used to sit and eat breakfast. Elton would come up with the tune during breakfast. I'd write my songs longhand. I'm pretty sure I didn't have a typewriter. Wow, look at that. We have two conflicting stories going on there. It's got Elton John, who remembers the typewriter, and Bernie Taupin was like, hey, I wrote this stuff longhand. I didn't use a typewriter. And then he would go on and say, one of the few things I remember very clearly was this, is easy to visualize now, is sitting on the side of my bed with a notepad just writing. I just write stream of conscious lyrics. And then Elton John would say, we would record about 3 or 4 tracks a day. They were mostly made up on the day that they were recorded. We were a very tight band with a lot of touring experience. We'd capture more songs in 2 or 3 takes. The whole record took about 18 days. Wow, 3 or 4 tracks a day? That is amazing. But when you think about would it be a normal type of situation for Bernie and Elton? I mean, the output these guys were putting out leading up to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was staggering. This is Elton John's 7th release since 1969, so the workload was hot, and Bernie Taupin was on top of his songwriting game, and Elton is coming up with the music at a top level as well. Now, Elton, Bernie, and the band were doing a double album. They did not intend to do a double album, but there was so much good material being created over the month of the sessions, it made sense just to go ahead and do it. The songs fit well on the album. The sound is there and the production's on point. Producer Gus Dudgeon mentioned on VH1's Classic Albums documentary that he wasn't a fan of the double album, as he thought many double albums had filler and rubbish, which would pad the time in the tracks. And there were a few exceptions, such as the Beatles' White Album and Jimi Hendrix Experience's Electric Ladyland. Elton John also holds these two albums in high regard, as he feels Goodbye Yellow Brick Road can stand up with those records. And I agree with him that Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is a Stone Cold classic, and the album is enjoyable from front to back. It has everything from hits, sustained classic rock airplay, and strong deep tracks. Stephen David of Rolling Stone did not think too highly of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road upon its release. He states in his review, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is a massive double record exposition of unabashed fantasy, myth, wet dreams, and cornball acts, an overproduced array of musical portraits and hard rock, and that always threatens to founder to fat or to flow artistically, doomed by presentation, by pretension, but redeemed commercially by the presence of a couple brilliant tracks out of a possible 18. The new record is a big fruity pie that doesn't bake, but oh Lord, how it tries. Elton plays in front of thoroughly professional and creative instrumental group. Guitarist Davey Johnstone was a rare find when he joined the band a while ago. The guitar lines of the omnipresent AM hit Saturday Nights Are Right for Fighting ably testify to his power. Producer Dudgeon alternates tasteful and tricky ideas with lank orchestrations that owe more to Richard Perry and Mantovani than to music per se. By and large, I can appreciate Bernie's lyrics, though the hatred of women that pervades this cycle of songs is awesome in its rancor. Check the words to Dirty Little Girl. They made the fabled Jagger Richard Demimo sweethearts seem more like Karen Carpenter. Pretty crazy stuff going on there. Robert Christgau of The Village Voice gave the album a B grade, stating, 2 LPs ago, Bernie Taupin passed on his way from obscure banality to clean, well-lighted banality to write a batch of imaginative lyrics, and set to those lyrics, John's music sounded eclectic but not confused. Too often now it seems to chatter on anonymously. The title cut is good. Benny and the Jets is great. Side 4 is good to great. And a few other songs here would probably benefit from more exclusive company. But this is one more double album that would make a nifty single. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was a tremendous success as it reached number 1 on both the UK and US album charts. The singles from the album, Benny and the Jets, Saturday Nights Are Right for Fighting, and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, were also tremendously successful on their own. Rolling Stone ranks Goodbye Yellow Brick Road number 91 on their 500 greatest albums of all time. Let me say, I feel this is far too low, as I rank this album in my top 25 at least. That's a brief history of the album. Now buckle up. We have a double album's worth of tracks to jump into, so let's get into it. Opens with the track Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. Funeral for a Friend is the instrumental introduction to the song, which goes into Love Lies Bleeding, and the track times in at just over 11 minutes. Bernie Taupin called Love Lies Bleeding lyric a statement of what touring and rock and roll does to the family life. This says it all. Let's take a look. The roses in the window box have tilted on one side. Everything about this house was born and grow and die. Oh, it doesn't seem a year ago to this very day. You said, I'm sorry, honey. If I don't change the pace, I can't face another day. Yeah, and this is where the conflict, I think, comes into the whole being a huge star in no matter what form of entertainment that you're in. The burden that's really taken on is with the family. It's like, yeah, okay, you like everything that goes along with the rock and roll lifestyle, what it provides the family, but there definitely is something missing from the human element. And that's where Bernie Taupin is jumping into here. This is kind of like, this is his own story that he's talking about here in Love Lies Bleeding. In Love Lies Bleeding in my hand, Oh, it kills me to think of you with another man. I was playing rock and roll and you were just a fan, but my guitar couldn't hold you, so I split the band. Love lies bleeding in my hand. I wonder if these changes have left a scar on you, like all the burning hoops of fire that you and I passed through. You're a bluebird on a telegraph line. I hope you're happy now. Well, if the wind of change comes down your way, girl, you'll make it back somehow. And then it goes into the chorus of love lies bleeding in my hand. I think that these are lyrics I think everybody needs to kind of take to heart. It isn't just people in the performing arts. It isn't for just huge stars like Elton John or a world-class songwriter like Bernie Taupin, who at this time is just cranking out song after song after song for one of the greatest pop acts at the time, that you really have to sometimes figure out time for yourself and time for your loved ones amidst the work, as much as the work is there and it's needed to be done. I think that at this time here in 1973, that these guys were just working at just such a blistering pace, and the success was coming along with all the work that they were putting into. And I'm sure that they were feeling pressures from everybody. We're talking about from the record company, management wanting to get these guys on tour. It was really a whirlwind. I mean, we're talking the 7th album here in 4 years. It's just absolutely, it's not a sustainable pace. It really isn't. And thankfully for these guys, they did slow down a bit after this. The next track is Candle in the Wind. And this song is famously about the life and times of actress Marilyn Monroe. Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you at all, you had the grace to hold yourself while those around you crawled. They crawled out of the woodwork and they whispered into your brain. They set you on a treadmill and they made you change your name. And again, I think that there's a parallel that's going on with this verse here between what Bernie Taupin is imagining what Marilyn Monroe is going through in her career, and kind of like what him and Elton John are going through at this time too. And not only are they on this treadmill of just constant work, there's just people just coming out from everywhere, wanting a piece of these guys, wanting them to appear on this show, do these concerts, create another album. So again, this is something that not only is Bernie Taupin paying tribute to Marilyn Monroe, but it's almost kind of therapeutic in a way that he's like, all right, I'm kind of feeling the same way here. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never knowing who to cling to when the rain set in. And I would have liked to known you, but I was just a kid. Your candle burned out long before. Your legend never did. So again, I think this is one of those situations too where Bernie Taupin's even talking about, yeah, I would have liked to have known you, because I think he's feeling kind of the same way that Marilyn Monroe is feeling in her career. And he's kind of feeling the stresses of stardom, just like she did. Loneliness was tough. The toughest role you ever played. Hollywood created a superstar, and pain was the price you paid. Even when you died. Oh, the press still hounded you. All the papers had to say was that Marilyn was found in a nude. And again, this is one of those things too, where I think that when you're talking about people who are in the public view, like Bernie Taupin and Elton John, a lot of scrutiny comes with the press. And the press, and Bernie Taupin is expressing here that the press is very quickly to report on you when you're at your worst and at your most vulnerable. And unfortunately, it seems like when it comes to Marilyn Monroe, it's her death more than anything that is what kind of like history focuses on, more so than the actress's career. And then it goes into the chorus. And then it finally ends up here. Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you all had the grace to hold yourself while those around you crawled. Goodbye, Norma Jean. From a young man in the 22nd road who sees you as something more than sexual, more than just our Marilyn Monroe. And then that's just Bernie Taupin talking about there that for him, he sees more than just the sex symbol of Marilyn Monroe. He sees the woman, Marilyn Monroe, more than anything. And I think that that's almost kind of like going back to where Bernie Taupin understands, all right, where was the story of Marilyn Monroe? Where did it end up? It was a tragic end. And this is his tribute to Marilyn, and then also letting the public know, she was more than just a sex symbol. She was a person. She was an individual, and she was a great woman. The next track, Benny and the Jets. Now, this is where I want to kind of divert a little bit here, and where I see kind of like where we talk about perceptions of artist comparisons. So many times I see Elton John compared to David Bowie, and I really don't understand why, because to me, I have great admiration for both of these guys. To me, they're just two unique artists. But here's where I think that some of the parallels come from, especially when you're getting into 1973. And I want to jump into what David Bowie's song is about: an imaginary band and an imaginary star called Ziggy Stardust. And that song, and then you compare it to Benny and the Jets, kind of the same thing. You're looking at the same idea. Benny to Ziggy. It's two fictitious rock stars, and it's a story talking about these two fictitious bands. And before we jump into the lyrics, one of the things that I grabbed from the VH1 Classic Rock documentary is some of the ambiance that's going on with this song. And what's cool about going into that documentary, and I would recommend that anybody go ahead and take a look at that. And if you're in the United States, I know that Amazon Prime Video does have this on their service, and I'm sure you can probably find this elsewhere. If you want to go buy a DVD at Amazon or wherever you get your DVDs from, it's still out there. But what added to this song, and what gave it the live feel, and I always kind of got tricked into this when I was younger. I was like, wow, this is a live track that they just kind of thrown onto this album, but it's not. This was all stuff done in post-production. This is the crowd noises. This is the hand claps. And what's cool about the hand claps, if you notice within the song, they don't follow to the beat of the music. They're kind of offbeat there. And that's really cool in a lot of ways, because if you think about when you go to a concert, there's just like not to rag on just like anybody who's like not a music nerd like me, but if you go there, it's like, sometimes people just don't follow the beats of the music or even feel the music, or they're kind of dancing kind of weird, but that's fine. I mean, that's their own vibe. And I think that that's almost kind of like a tongue in cheek kind of way that an observation that these guys are seeing when they are at their shows. It's like, there's all people being goofy and kind of offbeat at our shows. And it's really cool. It gives the song a lot more color, but now I look at it in retrospect, it wasn't meant to give it a live feel, like it was a live song, but it was just to add a little bit more of texture to the song, just to kind of let everybody know. It's like, hey, we're talking about a fictitious band. So let's jump into the lyrics. Hey kids, shake it loose together. The spotlight's hitting something that's been known to change the weather. We'll kill the fatted calf tonight, so stick around. You're going to hear electric music, solid walls of sound. Say, Candy and Ronnie, have you seen them yet? Oh, but they're so spaced out. Bubba, Benny and the Jets. Oh, they're weird and wonderful. Oh, Benny, she's really keen. She's got electric boots, a mohair suit. I read it in a magazine, Benny and the Jets. And again, I see the parallels to Ziggy Stardust on here, but again, to me, that's where the comparisons of Elton John and David Bowie end, is with these songs here. It's not fair to lump these two guys together. It just isn't. If you want to lump them together as great artists, that's, to me, where it begins and ends right there. Hey kids, plug into the faithless. Maybe they're blinded, but Benny makes them ageless. We shall survive. Let us take ourselves along. Where we fight our parents out in the streets to find out who's right and who's wrong. Then it goes into the chorus for Benny and the Jets. And to me, that again, this is really cool here. This is a divide that young people and their parents do have. I mean, especially when it comes to music. There's just like I was very fortunate as a kid. Like I had no divide with my parents when it came to music. It's like we were kind of cool. And I know like in retrospect, like now, you know, my mom even went to me one time. She's like, I kind of get that 80s music that you would watch on MTV, but that's fine. It wasn't a divide between us, because I think that that generation had such a butting of heads with their parents, and there was just so much change going around. If you look at here, like Benny and the Jets, if we're going to compare it to like kind of like a glam type of situation here, where you're talking about androgynous characters, and you're talking about adults just kind of like in total shock about what's going on there, and the flamboyancy that the story of Benny and the Jets does talk about there. I can see where that's just such a cool line there about kids fighting with their parents on the streets to find out who's right and who's wrong. And then you're just going into the rest of it is the chorus with the Benny and the Jets talking about Candy and Ronnie. Have you seen them yet? Oh, but they're so spaced out. Like that's almost kind of like somebody who's more or less like a straight edge type pop kid going to their two friends, like saying, all right, I've heard about these Benny and the Jets guys. They're freaking weird. Like, don't you agree? And Candy and Ronnie's like no, man, these guys are freaking cool. These are our guys. This is the stuff that we're into. We've kind of grown past just the standard AM radio type of fare, and we're into this new thing. We're into this glam thing. And again, that's another thing too. Like Elton John, he a lot of times gets thrown into kind of like that glam type of I almost say stereotype, or even that group, because even like for me, I'm just kind of like, you know, whatever, you know, glam. Okay, David Bowie, T-Rex, New York Dolls, you know, performers like that. To me, it's just really freaking good music. And these guys were total trailblazers when it came to that, when it came to not only music, but when it came to fashion, when it came to look. So Elton John, yeah, did the guy wear some crazy outfits? Hell yeah, he did. But to say that Elton John was like a Ziggy Stardust era David Bowie or a Mark Bolan, I don't see it. It's not there. Benny and the Jets, great song. Now we go on to the title track, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. This is a song about fame and people who want a piece of you when you're at top, but happiness may be realized when you have all this public success. You kind of want to go back to where you came from and take a break. And then again, to me, this almost kind of takes a little bit of a full circle type of situation when we're looking at Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. That's where Bernie Taupin is basically going into the struggles that he's having with his family life, with him being so damn busy. And then now Goodbye Yellow Brick Road talks about almost kind of like dropping out in a way. When are you going to come down? When are you going to land? I should have stayed on the farm. I should have listened to my old man. You know you can't hold me forever. I didn't sign up with you. I'm not a present for your friends to open. This boy's too young to be singing the blues. So goodbye Yellow Brick Road, where the dogs of society howl. You can't plant me in your penthouse. I'm going back to my plow. Back to the howling old owl in the woods, hunting a horny-backed toad. Oh, I finally decided my future lies beyond the Yellow Brick Road. Now, the Yellow Brick Road, look at the analogy between, Alice in Wonderland. And Alice really wanted to get away. I mean, she was stuck in Kansas, kind of bored. She has the dream of going to Oz in the Yellow Brick Road and following the Yellow Brick Road. But then eventually, as she goes down the Yellow Brick Road all the way, it ultimately leads her back to home. And that's where Elton John and Bernie Taupin are talking about here, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Not necessarily that they have any regrets about their fame or the type of life that they chose, but it's almost talking about a desire to say, all right, we need to take a break here because everybody wants a piece of us here. And we almost kind of feel like we're objects, especially when you're talking about the lyrics. I'm not a present for your friends to open. Again, it's almost like the dehumanizing of stardom, and it goes back to Candle in the Wind. Same thing, where Bernie Taupin's talking about Marilyn Monroe being not treated as a human being or a woman. She's a sex object, or she's an actress, or she's somebody for the press to talk to. What do you think you'll do then? I bet you'll shoot down your plane. It'll take you a couple of vodka and tonics to set you on your feet again. Maybe you'll get a replacement. There's plenty like me to be found. Mongrels who ain't got a penny, sniffing for tidbits like you on the ground. And with those lyrics here, to me, Elton John, even at this point, is timeless. And he's gone on to prove that he is timeless. Elton John was not a performer who was a flash in the pan. Elton John was a huge star at this point, and his star only grew. Even like this is 1973. When I'm getting more familiar with popular music, Elton John still very relevant on the radio. Elton John relevant on MTV. This is a guy who had a sustained career on top. But the lyrics here is where Bernie Taupin understands the business. And he's saying, yeah, there are flashes in the pan here that the public will eat you, chew you up, and spit you out eventually. And then again, like mongrels who ain't got a penny, sniffing for tidbits like you on the ground. That is just such a crazy set of lyrics right there, where like mongrels who ain't got a penny is almost kind of like these people who are seeking out talent and seeking out for these new stars to present or to even kind of fabricate in a factory, so to say. And yeah, this is just kind of like, this is just these guys just talking about the dissatisfaction. This song has no title. This is a song about growing and learning, and there's not a purpose for it. You just have to always have your eyes wide open, have an open mind, because you may miss something. The song needs no title, just words and a tune. Tune me into the wild side of life. I'm an innocent young child, sharp as a knife. Take me to the garrets where the artists have died. Show me the courtrooms where the judges have lied. Man, I'm an innocent young child, sharp as a knife. That just goes back to your youth and how you feel like nothing's going to cut you down in life, and you feel invincible. And this is Bernie Taupin writing about that and being retrospective like that. And as you grow older, even for these guys, I mean, they're not old guys by any stretch of the imagination. They're in their 20s still. They're seeing their vulnerability and even talking about like kind of like your mortality in many ways. You can kind of see things more toward the end than rather when you're a child, because when you're a child, hell, everybody's old. Let me drink deeply from the water and the wine, light colored candles in dark dreary minds. Look in the mirror and stare at myself and wonder if that's really me on the shelf. And each day I learn a little bit more. I don't know why, but I know what for. If we're all going somewhere, let's get there soon. Oh, this song's got no title, just words in a tune. Take me down the alleys where the murders are done. In a vast, high-powered rocket to the core of the sun. Want to read books in the studies of men. Born on the breeze and die on the wind. Again, this is talking about somebody who it doesn't necessarily have to be a young person. This can be anybody. This is what I talked about at the beginning when jumping into the lyrics here. The song has no title. It's about keeping your eyes wide open, and just doesn't need to be a kid. It can be an adult, and just being having that inquisitive type of mind. If I was an artist who paints with his eyes, I'd study my subject and silently cry. Cry for the darkness to come down on me, for confusion to carry on turning the wheel. Now, if you're an artist who paints with it just his eyes, I'd study my subject and silently cry. This is somebody who's looking at just kind of like what's in front of them. They're not looking deeper into the individual. They're just seeing the outer beauty of somebody, and they're not going to take that deeper dive into learning about that person anymore. And it ends with the CORS, and each day I learn a little bit more. I don't know why, but I do know what for. If we're all going somewhere, let's get there soon. Oh, this song's got no title, just words and a tune. The next track is Gray Seal. Bernie Taupin has said he really does not know what Gray Seal is about, but it just works. I see this as about a person who looks at life through blinders, and they learn from books, and they're told things and they accept them as fact without questioning. Why is it never light on my dawn? Why does it rain and never say good day to the newborn? On the big screen, they showed us the sun, but not as bright in life as the real one. It's never quite the same as the real one. And tell me, Gray Seal, how does it feel to be so wise, to see through eyes that only see what's real? Tell me, Gray Seal. I never learned why meteors were formed. I only farmed in schools. They were so worn and torn. If anyone can cry, so can I. I read books and draw life from the eye. All my life is drawings from the eye. And again, that's where I kind of got that interpretation from, was from these set of lyrics here. This is just, and I think that this is applying a little bit less because just from being a parent of two kids at ages 15 and 9, I can't get away with it is this way because I told you so. They don't accept that as an answer. And it's just not my kids. It's just a lot of young people now too. They want to know more, because I just think that they're just exposed to a lot more information. Because even like when I was a kid, like a lot of my learning was done just at school, and I had to almost kind of accept things as fact. And it was really like a lot of the learning was the same as what my parents went through, and they were just kind of like, oh, it is what it is. You go learn in school. But thankfully I had some cool parents, and whenever I had questions, they were always there to answer them for me. So I was kind of like an outlier. So I was able to ask the questions, but I can see like here, this is kind of, Elton John and Bernie Taupin just kind of just, shaking their heads like, why do people have to be like this? We need to be more open-minded. And it says, your mission bells were wrought by ancient men. The roots were formed by twisted roots. Your roots were twisted then. I was reborn before all life could die. The phoenix bird will leave this world to fly. If the phoenix bird can fly, then so can I. Pretty cool. Again, this is talking about, people spreading their wings and broadening their horizons, whether it be in their mind or to be able to go and explore different places of the world. There's a lot of opportunity that's out there. And if you don't take advantage of those opportunities, you'll just be that gray seal. It's like, yeah, you might appear to be wise, but to the people that can see through it, there's like this guy's just a robot. All right, the next track is Jamaica Jerk Off. Now, this definitely is coming from the experience that these guys had in Jamaica, trying to get themselves off the ground here for recording Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and having the intentions of doing this in Jamaica. And I almost kind of like thinking, like in retrospect, like would these guys have any regrets about writing this song? Because it's kind of derogatory in a lot of ways here, but I guess you kind of have to think about where they were coming from. There was just a lot of frustration that came along with their time in Jamaica. And like for me, I definitely have troubles with, and I struggle with this song in many ways, because I've had I've had the pleasure of visiting the country of Jamaica, and for me, like, I had a great experience there, so I can't really relate to what's going on here, but it's also a very different country. uh, I mean, I went there in the 2000s, and this is going on in the early 1970s. So again, we're almost kind of talking about like two completely different places at this time. But here's the lyrics to the song. When she gets up in the morning, it's enough to wake the dead. Oh, she's turning on the radio and dancing on my head. It's no good living in the sun, playing guitar all day, boogalooing with my friends in that erotic way. Come on, Jamaica, in Jamaica all day. Dancing with your darling, do Jamaica jerk off that way? Come on, Jamaica. Everybody say, we're all happy in Jamaica. Do Jamaica jerk off that way? Let the ladies and gentlemen be as rude as they like. On the beaches, oh, in the jungle, where the people feel all right. Again, we're talking about pretty short-sighted lyrics going on here. This does not this is not indicative of everybody that's in Jamaica, but you can say that about any place in the world. There's not a place in the world where every single person there is going to be welcoming to you, or they're not going to have their defenses up about you, or question about like what's your angle for being in this place. So, it is what it is at this point. Not one of my favorite tracks. I mean, it can end up being my least favorite track on this album, just because of the content that was involved. And I don't know. I guess I take it kind of personally there, because I had such a good experience there in Jamaica, and I met some great people from Jamaica. So that's where that one kind of ties me up in knots there. But we'll just leave that up to as a document of a moment in time for Bernie Taupin and Elton John, and just kind of leave it at that. And now to close up the first record. Wow, we've gone through it already here. I've seen that movie too. I can see by your eyes you must be lying. When you think that I don't have a clue. Baby, you're crazy. If you think you can fool me, because I've seen that movie too. Now, this is right here. This is setting the scene for the song here. This is somebody who has caught their partner cheating on them. The one where the players are acting surprised, saying love's just a 4-letter word, between forcing smiles with knives in their eyes while their actions become so absurd. Keep your auditions for somebody who hasn't got so much to lose, because I can tell by the lines I'm reciting that I've seen that movie too. Now, you've seen this scene play out so many times, especially when you're talking about, you can talk about movies and TV shows, and fortunately I haven't had to go through this, so you've seen many people in their real lives going through this and catching somebody, and they're kind of like the person who gets snagged or gets questioned. They're acting surprised, like saying like what are you talking about? I'm not doing anything. I love you. So it's Bernie Taupin and Elton John just talking about seeing through this individual's lies that are going on, and the lies that they're leading there. It's a habit I have. I don't get pushed around. Stop twinkling your star like you do. I'm not the blueprint for all your B films, because I've seen that movie too. Now, that's really cool. That's a really cool line. Those are some cool lines right there too. Like, I'm not the blueprint for all your B films. They're just letting that individual knows like, hey, the shit that you're pulling right here is not good material at all. It's B-rate material at best. So the story that you're portraying, you're not fooling me, you're not fooling anybody else, and you're only fooling yourself. And then it goes into the chorus there. So keep your auditions for somebody who hasn't got so much to lose. Because I can tell by the lines I'm reciting that I've seen that movie too. Very strong track to close out the first record. And now we will be going on to more tracks, a second record. We heard about that, and I discussed there about that original Rolling Stone review back in 1973 where the album really wasn't well received, and they're talking about raunchy lyrics and talking about raunchy women. And here's where we haven't hit that yet, but now we're hitting that section of the album here with Sweet Painted Lady. And very simply, it's a song about prostitutes. I'm back on dry land once again. Opportunity awaits me like a rat in the drain. We're all hunting honey with money to burn. Just a short time to show you the tricks that we've learned. If the boys all behave themselves here, well, there's sweet young ladies and a beer in the rear. You won't need a gutter to sleep in tonight. Oh, the prices I charge here will see you all right. So she lays down beside me again, my sweet painted lady, the one with no name. Many have used her, and many still do. There's a place in the world for a woman like you. Oh, sweet painted lady, seems it's always been the same, getting paid for being laid. Guess that's the name of the game. Forget us. We'll have gone very soon. Just forget we ever slept in your rooms, and we'll leave the smell of the sea in your beds, where love's just a job and nothing is said. So she lays down beside me again, my sweet painted lady, the one with no name. Many have used her, and many still do. There's a place in the world for a woman like you. I don't really think I have to get too much into this here. The lyrics pretty much, they talk for themselves. We're talking about a prostitution area here for guys who work at the sea there, and when they come to shore, they hit up these sweet painted ladies, have themselves a good time. They don't ask for any names. They don't ask for any emotional connection. They just do what they got to do, and they move on. The next track is The Ballad of Danny Bailey, 1909 to 1934. Danny Bailey, he's a fictitious character created by Bernie Taupin. Some punk with a shotgun killed young Danny Bailey in cold blood in the lobby of a downtown motel. Killed him in anger, a force he couldn't handle. Helped pull the trigger that cut short his life. And there's not many knew him in the way that we did. Sure enough, he was a wild one. But then, aren't most hungry kids? Now it's all over for Danny Bailey. And the harvest is in. Dillinger's dead. Oh, I guess the cops won again. Now it's all over, Danny Bailey. Now, I mean, is Danny Bailey here? Is this guy here a bad dude here? Says, I guess the cops won again. So he's kind of like a villainous type of guy here. It seems like we're running short of heroes back here up in the hills. Without Danny Bailey, we're gonna have to break up our stills. So mark his grave well, because Kentucky loved him. Born and raised a proper, I guess life just bugged him, and he found faith in danger, a lifestyle he lived by. A running gun youngster in a sad, restless age. Oh. Now, this is one of those things here where we're talking about, okay, look at the years we're here. 1909 to 1934, we're kind of into that Prohibition era there, and seems like here that we're talking about a guy here, Danny Bailey here. We're talking about here, we're running short on heroes back here up in the hills. We're gonna have to break up our stills. They're talking about here. They're talking about the moonshine industry right there, or I can't even really say it's an industry because it was an underground illegal operation at that time there. So, Danny Bailey can just be looked at one of the guys that's kind of the kingpin of what's going on there. And then rather than kind of go through the motions there that law enforcement has to kind of go through with stuff that's going on that might be a quote unquote illegal operation, they just went ahead and killed this guy. So it's one of those things where it's the glorification of I put in quotes, a bad guy. I mean, is he really a bad guy in the whole scheme of things? But in the eyes of the law, he's a bad dude. All right. So the next track here is Dirty Little Girl. I've seen a lot of women who haven't had much luck. I've seen you looking like you've been run down by a truck. That ain't nice to say. Sometimes I guess I'm really hard. but I'm kind of put buckshot in your pants if you step into my yard. When I watch the police come by, move you on. Well, I sometimes wonder what's beneath the mess you've become. Well, you may have been a pioneer in the trade of women's wear, but all you got was a mop-up job washing other people's stairs. How she do it? How she do it? Oh, I'm going to tell the world you're a dirty little girl. Someone grab that bitch by the ears, rub her down, scrub her back, turn her inside out. 'Cause I bet she hasn't had a bath in a year. Here's my own belief about all the dirty little girls. That you have to clean the oyster to find the pearl. And like rags that belong to you, I belong to myself. So don't show up around here till your social workers helped. How she do it? How she do it? I'm going to tell the world that you're a dirty little girl. And it goes into the rest there with the chorus. Now, I think that, again here, are we necessarily talking about a bad girl here? No, probably not. It could just be a girl who's gone down the wrong path and has gotten herself in a lot of trouble and is kind of in tatters. But then when we're talking about the lyrics here, like one of the most telling ones here is like, here's my own belief about all the dirty girls. You have to clean the oyster to find the pearl. So you have to go through all that oyster gunk that's inside there in the shell there to find, what's really the good thing about these individuals here. And they're just not inherently bad people. They're just in bad situations. And if you really clean them up really good there, the rest of the world can see, but the world again only sees what's going on the outside. And if they see somebody in tatters, they'll just like ultimately just feel like, all right, this is just a worthless person for this society. And that's not always the case. Now, another song about raunchy females. All the young girls love Alice. And this song basically sets the scene of the suicide of Alice. She's a young girl who has sexual affairs with other girls in her school and with married women. So she's kind of all over the place here. This is a really cool song. This is actually one of my favorite songs on the album. Not basically, just lyrically. I mean, the lyrics are just really good, but the music that goes along with this song, it's just a really heavy song in my opinion. Raised to be a lady by the golden rule, Alice was the spawn of a public school with a double barrel name in the back of her brain. It was a simple case of Mummy doesn't love me blues. And there you go. That's the suicide right there. That's Alice killing herself. Really, it seems was just a dream. She couldn't get it on with the boys on the scene. But what do you expect from a chick who's just 16 and a hey, you know what I mean? All the young girls love Alice. Tender young Alice, they say. Come over and see me. Come over and please me. Alice, it's my turn today. All the young girls love Alice. Tender young Alice, they say. If you give me my number, will you promise to call me? Wait till my husband's away. And there's your chorus right there. That's it setting the scene there. This is the path that young Alice has gone down. She's out there hooking up with the girls in her school. And then you find out here it's the married women are finding out about Alice and they want to hook up with her too. And they want to have, it's almost kind of like Alice is the vehicle for these individuals' curiosity when it comes to their sexuality, and they know where to go. And Alice is kind of getting used by all these people here. And that's what kind of, I think with the lyrics here, it leads to her emotional breakdown and to her ultimately killing herself. Poor little darling with a chip out of her heart. It's like acting in a movie when you got the wrong part, getting your kicks in another girl's bed. And it was only last Tuesday that they found you in the subway dead. And who can call you your friends down in Soho? One or two middle-aged dykes in a go-go. And what do you expect from a 16-year-old yo-yo and a hey? Oh, you know what I mean. Yeah. Again, and then it goes into the chorus there. It's a tragic song there. It's about, I wouldn't even say that it's about a confused person. I think Alice does know what she wants, but then it's everybody else's curiosity that's around her, and they use her, and that's what her demise is, and that's what breaks her down. All right. So the next track here is Your Sister Can't Twist, but She Can Rock and Roll. And I would say don't people don't we or just other people like take people at face value? Like, sister just seems to be like an ordinary vanilla person, but she's on fire in the bedroom. So, and this is again, we're talking about some more lyrics here about some wild women. I could really get off being in your shoes. I used to be stone sold on rhythm and blues. I heard of a place at the back of town where you really kick the shit when the sun goes down. I really got buzzed when your sister said, throw away them records because the blues is dead. Let me take you, honey, where the scene's on fire. And tonight I learned for certain that the blues expired. Oh, your sister can't twist, but she can rock and roll. Out bucks the Broncos and the rodeo. She's only 16, but it's plain to see. She can pull the wool over little old me. Your sister can't twist, but she can rock and roll. Your sister can't twist, but she got more soul than me. Somebody help me, because the bug bit me. Now I'm in heaven with the aching feet. But I'll be back tonight where the music plays and your sister rocks all my blues away. I really got buzzed when your sister said, throw away them records because the blues is dead. Let me take you, honey, where the scene's on fire. And tonight I learned for certain that the blues expired. Now, yeah, this is where you're talking about this woman here. Like I don't know if it's necessarily talking about somebody's sister specifically, but I think it's just like more or less like sister is just a generic name that we're talking about this woman here, where sister, this woman here, like the blues is like almost kind of like the what's been exposed to the public, and what we're told is, okay, this is the in thing here. This is the blues. But then sister's like, I know something that you don't know. And it's kind of like a shock, because you would think that sister is, following what the norms of society are, but she may look the part, but she has all this other information, and it becomes known. And that's when you talk about here, your sister can't twist, but she can rock and roll. Like, all right, the twist is old. It's dead. And now we're going into this new rock and roll thing. All right. So now we're going to get into probably is what the most well-known song on this album is, and probably the biggest hit. And I know for sure this is the track that gets the most airplay on classic rock radio, and probably did back in the day when it came out, and it's Saturday Nights Are Right for Fighting. Even like, okay, I know one of the things that I talk about on this podcast is like the overplaying of songs and how they've worn on me over the years. And this podcast is kind of like a vehicle to reel me back in and understand the greatness of these songs and why they are so damn important, and why they resonate with the public. But Saturday Nights Are Right for Fighting, I'm going to tell you, if I'm ever listening to regular radio, which is kind of like a rarity at this point, this track comes on, man, I'm not turning it off for anything. I'm cranking the volume up, and I'm singing along to it. And it's basically about raucous times at the pub or the bar. It's getting late. Have you seen my mates? Ma, tell me when the boys get here. It's 7:00 and I want to rock. Want to get my belly full of beer. My old man's drunker than a barrel full of monkeys. And my old lady, she don't care. My sister looks cute in her braces and boots. A handful of grease in her hair. Don't give us none of your aggravation. We had it with your discipline. Oh, Saturday nights are right for fighting. Get a little action in. Get about as oiled as a diesel train. Gonna set this dance all right. 'Cause Saturday nights, the night I like. Saturday nights all right. I mean, that sets the scene right there. Like what's going on here with this guy? He sees his dad. His dad's toasted. He gets toasted at home. He comes home from work. He gets himself blasted. His mom doesn't give a shit. She's just like, Oh, well, just another day. George is back from wherever he works. He gets home, he gets blasted. Just another just another day at the office here at the old homestead. And then it's the kids. The kids want to get out of there. The kids want to go out there and let their hair down. Sister looks cute in her braces and boots and a handful of grease in her hair. Guy's sister's ready to go out there and get out of the house and go out and have some fun. And then, of course, this guy here, he just wants to get together with his friends and go and have some beers at the pub. And then it goes into the chorus there with Saturday nights all right for fighting, get a little action. And you're like, yeah, this is raucous people with a lot of liquor in them. Yeah, you can see some fighting going on. That's for sure there. And this is Bernie Taupin talking about, I'm sure, many of the experiences that he saw there in the old pubs. Well, they're packed pretty tight in here tonight. I'm looking for a dolly who'll see me right. I may use a little muscle to get what I need. I may sink a little drink and shout out, she's with me. A couple of the sounds that I really like are the sounds of Switchblade and a motorbike. I'm a juvenile product of the working class whose best friend floats in the bottom of the glass. Wow, it's pretty. Again, it's this is something that people could live for sure. And this is, to me, almost kind of like it seems kind of like the norm there. And I almost kind of saw those norms more like, in college days. It's like, all right, Thursday's drinking night. You go and take care of that here. And this is what they're talking about here. This is about going to the pubs. And after putting in a solid week of work, I'm a juvenile product of the working class whose best friend floats in the bottom of the glass. Like, yeah, this guy's just following what his environment around him is practicing and what he's learned. And the song's just freaking incredible. It really is. It's in my opinion, it's what a double album needs. It's like they need to have, I almost feel like for like a really successful double album, it's like yeah, having that hit there. That's something that the public can really sink their teeth into. That really helps things along, because let's face it, I mean, double albums are, for some people, are very tough to digest. But man, you give them a track like Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting on there, so you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go grab this album here. This is good shit here. All right, so the next track is Roy Rogers, and I'm gonna say like Jamaica Jerk Off. This is probably like falls into one of my least favorite tracks of the album here, but I can understand why it's there. It's Bernie Taupin for sure taking a look back at his childhood, where life was so much simpler, and for me, it's tough to relate to, just from the characters that they're talking about here, like Roy Rogers, like. That's my dad's era, and I've heard my dad talk about Roy Rogers before, and kind of like, like the whole Western and having cap guns and cowboy hats and all that stuff. And like, I didn't like really have that stuff there. And it was almost kind of like that era was kind of played out by the time I was a child. But it's like this song here for me is, I would say, is a cool retrospective where Bernie Taupin goes into the 1950s and early 1960s of these guys that were on TV, which was really brand new technology at that point. And these were the stars. And Roy Rogers was a character that really resonated with young boys and back in that day too. So this is him just kind of opining on that. Sometimes you dream. Sometimes it seems there's nothing there at all. You just seem older than yesterday, and you're waiting for tomorrow to call. You draw to the curtains, and the one thing's for certain, you're cozy in your little room. The carpet's all paid for. God bless the TV. Let's go shoot a hole in the moon. Oh, and Roy Rogers is riding tonight, returning to our silver screens. Comic book characters never grow old. Evergreen heroes whose stories were told. Oh, the great sequin cowboy who sings on the plains of roundups and rustlers and home on the range. Turn on the TV, shut out the lights. Roy Rogers is riding tonight. Now, that's like really cool there. When you're talking about the great sequin cowboy who sings of the plains, That's the stardom right there, talking about these cowboys, where when you think about the stories of the Old West, it's kind of like, all right, here's the cowboy in the brown and black outfit here. But these new TV guys here were wearing more, even though like a lot of stuff, the stuff is in black and white, they're wearing more brighter stuff and with more colors to them and making them like appealing to young people. And that's where Bernie Taupin is talking about here. 9 o'clock mornings, 5 o'clock evenings, I'd liven the pace if I could. Oh, I'd rather have a ham in my sandwich than cheese, but complaining wouldn't do any good. Lay back in my armchair. Well, actually, before we go in that, it's like I'd rather have ham in my sandwich than cheese. That goes back to, again, it's another generation. It's like, think about going into the 1950s. And I heard the stories. I mean, I can't, again, this is just stuff I can't relate to. Mom makes a sandwich. You eat it or you go hungry. You eat it all. You eat everything that's on your plate. And then this is Bernie Taupin going, damn, it's like, I'd rather just have a ham sandwich rather than this cheese sandwich that mom prepared for me. I guess that was kind of like an era where mom didn't ask you what you wanted. It's like, here you go, kid. Here's your sandwich. Enjoy it. Lay back in my armchair. Close eyes and think clear. I can hear hoofbeats ahead. Roy and Trigger have just hit the hilltop, while the wife and kids are in bed. Again, cool stuff. I think it definitely speaks more probably to I would say the males that grew up in that generation there. And it was probably like a really cool song for a young guy that was the age of Bernie Taupin and Elton John to hear the song about that and showing a retrospective of what was going on. I guess it would be like almost like the equivalent of me like talking like if there was a song about like Transformers or He-Man or something. So like that's who Roy Rogers was to those guys. All right, so the next track here is Social Disease. This is simply a talk. This is to me is just simply a song about a self-aware alcoholic. My bulldog is barking in the yard, enough to raise a dead man from his grave. And I can't concentrate on what I'm doing. Disturbance going to crucify my days. And the days they get longer and longer, and the nighttime is a time of little use. For I just get ugly and older. I get juiced on Matthias and just hang loose. And I get bombed for breakfast in the morning. I get bombed for dinner time and tea. I dress in rags, smell a lot, and have a really good time. I'm a genuine example of a social disease. There's where the self-awareness comes into. It's like this guy's talking about kind of like this life that he leads, and he's just resigned to the fact is like yeah, I kind of know, like a social disease, like no one wants to really be around me here, and the mainstream people don't want to be around me, and I probably can't hold too much down when it comes to anything like jobs or relationships or anything. He's just kind of like resigned to the fact. Now here's another lyric that I had highlighted here. My landlady lives in a caravan. Well, that is when she isn't in my arms. And it seems I pay the rent in human kindness, but my liquor also helps grease her palms. He's getting away with paying his rent by like not even paying for it. He's paying it with liquor and sex. And this is wild. This is just wild stuff here. And then again, it's going back to social disease. He's probably like, damn, I really, he probably has like this sporadic work that goes on where he's able to earn a little bit of money so he can get his liquor. But then he kind of lives for almost free in his place because he liquors up and bangs the landlord. And the ladies are all getting wrinkles and they're falling apart at the seams. Well, I just get high on tequila and see visions of vineyards in my dreams. And I get bombed for breakfast in the morning. I get bombed for dinner time and tea. I dress in rags, smell a lot, and have a real good time. I'm a genuine example of a social disease. And it continues to go on like that. That's why I said it's it's kind of it's a cheeky song, to say the least there. And then it's talking, I can only imagine, like, we all have our shortcomings, we really do, but man, I would have a difficult time writing poetry or a song about it, or even sing about it. So that's what kind of makes that song kind of almost comical in a way. Now, we made it all the way. This is amazing. I mean, I honestly thought this was going to take forever, and I was really contemplating on doing this in 2 parts, but man, we went through it. It's like lyrics to me, they don't need to be a complicated type of situation. I'm just going through feelings and everything, and what I'm seeing and what I'm learning about. And this has just been a great exercise. And we're going to wrap it up here with Harmony. And Harmony is a song, to me, like Harmony, the texture and the ambiance of this song is the perfect closer, not only to an album, but to a double album. It is really good. This song always gives me chills. And it's simply about it's somebody finding solace with being by himself after a breakup. And he's talking to an ex and basically letting them know that even though we're broken up, I'm doing okay. Hello, baby, hello. Haven't seen your face for a while. Have you quit doing time for me, or are you still the same spoiled child? Hello, I said hello. Is this the only place you thought to go? Am I the only man you ever had, or I'm the last surviving friend that you know? Harmony and me were pretty good company, looking for an island in a boat upon the sea. Harmony, gee, I really love you, and I want to love you forever, and dream of never, never leaving Harmony. Hello, baby. Open up your heart and let your feeling flow. You're not unlucky knowing me. Keeping the speed real slow. In any case, I set my own pace by stealing the show. Say hello, hello. Now, I had those lyrics highlighted on here, and I think this is Elton and Bernie. They're just, I think, again, we're talking about more self-awareness here. I really think that these guys know that they're at the top of their game talking about lyrics like this here. And they're talking about how they, especially this is, I think, Bernie writing about Elton in a lot of ways, because Bernie's a lyricist, and let's face it, Elton John, he does the music. He's the vocalist. He's the real star. And you just see like this is Elton John. This is him taking a look at him. He's just probably observing what's going on. And in some ways, this is kind of like the perfect marriage here, musically, between Bernie Taupin and Elton John, because Bernie is observing what's going on here, and he sees Elton, the way that he performs, and it says, you're not unlucky knowing me. Okay, he's talking about, this is the context of the theme of Harmony, talking about the ex. But then keeping the speed real slow. In any case, I set my own pace by stealing the show. That's a performer right there. It really is. And that's the performer bringing in the crowd and having them eating from the palm of their hands. And then it goes into Harmony and me. We're pretty good company, looking for an island in a boat upon the sea. Harmony, gee, I really love you, and I want to love you forever. And dream of never, never leaving Harmony, never leaving Harmony. Again, a perfect way to close this double album out. Those were the lyrics. Now on to my story. Music was always playing, but I considered my family and my house more of a 45s or singles house rather than an album house. My parents did have their share of albums, and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was one of them. In fact, it was the only Elton John album they owned. This album has been a part of the family, so to say, my whole life. I don't recall the album being played much at all when I was a kid, but I vividly remember the cover art as I would thumb through my parents' album collection, which was kind of a common activity of mine that I love to do while listening to music. As I became more familiar with Elton John's work and became a fan of the hits, and you need to remember, when I was a kid in the 1980s, Elton John was still a hot act. Not only were his classics being played on oldies radio, but he was also on Top 40 radio and MTV. As a preteen, this album was still a curiosity to me, but listening to an album at the time on vinyl would prove to be a chore for this young guy. And having to get through the 11-minute song off the top was intimidating, though I would listen to side A often, as it had Benny and the Jets, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and Candle in the Wind. And that would be good for the most part. But albums became more of a thing for me as a teenager. And the history of the artists I admired became more of a thing. And it wasn't until I started buying CDs that I finally get into this album. I bought the album in high school, and I can't say it did much for me at the time, but it wasn't until I grew into my early 20s I finally got it, and I have not looked back. This is one of my favorite albums of all time, and it disappoints me a bit that all-time lists don't give the album the type of love I feel it deserves. And I own many Elton John albums, and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is my all-time favorite. Whenever I'm in the mood to listen to Elton John, I tend to go to this album. And I make sure I have the time necessary to take it all in from start to finish, because there's really not too many clunkers here in this album, which is rare for a double album. And I feel like the album is genius from start to finish. I cannot even tell you with any level of confidence what the highlight of the album is, because it's a fantastic from front to back. This is Bernie Taupin at the peak of his songwriting game, and this is Elton John at the top of putting music to the words and the band hitting their groove. And that's basically joining me for another episode of the Church of Rock Show. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and Podbean, and on the show notes page of the website. If there's another platform you use, please share this with me, and I'll work on getting the show there too. The audio version of the show is also available on YouTube. At this time, do a search on the Church of Rock Show to find the page, as the show has not reached its YouTube minimums to give the page a proper web address. So please like the page, listen to the podcast, so we can get the numbers up to accomplish this. Share the show with a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way to grow the show. Visit the show at churchofrockshow.com and check out the show notes underneath the podcast section of the site for bonus material such as videos, photos, and direct links to listen to the albums in their entirety on Spotify and Apple Music. Also check us out on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Church of Rock Show and on Twitter at Church of Rock 75. This episode is brought to you by Audible. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Church of Rock. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Church of Rock for your free audiobook. You can link directly to the show's sponsored Audible page by visiting churchofrockshow.com and go to the support section and click on the Audible link, and you can get your subscription started there as well. Until next time, I will catch you for another episode of the Church of Rock Show.